It's hard to believe when all you've known is hurt and loss. I look at you boys and I can honestly say I'm proud to be an orphan. And you'll feel the same way if you can believe in yourselves and believe in each other.
I really enjoyed getting to see this film. And, you know, Martin, it's such an inspiring story about these orphans and in a particularly, you know, tough time in America. For you, what about your hardships that you faced early in life kind of helped you really connect more with this story?
Well, I wasn't in an orphanage, but I did. It felt like it sometimes because you know, I grew up with there were 9 boys and 1 girl in my family, and both my parents were orphans, so we had to pitch in very early. But I learned that you serve others when you serve others best, you serve yourself best. But if you serve others first, you serve yourself best. That was the kind of theme of my family growing up. So we all leaned on each other, and that just became a way of life and an expected way of creating community. And that's what I think this film reflects. They were people in hard times. They didn't think of themselves as being in hard times. Everybody was suffering all over the place. And so there was no privilege to be had, but there was a lot of community to be shared. And I think that that's what the film did. It was not about doing great things. It was about doing all things with greater care. And and I think that the times that we've come through now, we're just emerging from, and the times that the film takes place have a very similar energy in that it was difficult for no one knew what the future held. A lot of people were suffering, and the only way to get through it was to be present to each other, create community. That's what this film is really all about.
And Ty, you know, my mother-in-law actually lived in an orphanage when she was younger at one point in her life with all of her siblings. She was able to keep them together, and they all turned out to have great success stories. So I loved that you carried that through and told us about these men and what happened to them, rather than just making it be about football, which it is. And I love the football aspect. So talk about your approach and how there's more to it.
Yeah, you know, that's what originally drew me to the story. You know, all the tropes in a sports film, you know, they tend to kind of come from Hoosiers to, you know, Friday Night Lights. And, you know, as a filmmaker, you want to try to do something different. And I was a little reluctant originally to even, you know, dig into the project until I started reading the book and realized, okay, there really is something different here. You know, the backstory of Rusty Russell and his time in World War One, and you know, all the orphans have backstories that are so unique and interesting. I felt like there was an opportunity to sort of tie in and weave this other narrative into the film. And that has a much more dramatic element to it that's tied to, you know, the Great Depression and being an orphan and not having anything in life, and Rusty coming in and inspiring them in a way that not only, you know, do they put everything they have towards the game of football, but also to resurrect their lives to a degree, you know, so that they can, you know, have opportunities that they didn't have, you know, previously. I think it really ties it all together, and I think they go hand in hand as well, you know, sports and community, yeah, you know, for sure, and they're mutually inspirational in many ways, and I think, you know, with awesome coaches and leaders like Rusty Russell and Doc Hall, you know, these boys were really lucky, and I think it really showed. And you know, later in their lives, obviously, they went on to do really great things and interesting things, and these gentlemen had a hand in it. And that to me is amazing.
Martin, I have to say, one of the most important things I think with kids when it comes to parenting or when it comes to just mentorship, Doc and Coach both made, you know, huge leaps in changing the trajectory of these kids' lives. But it's the idea of instilling worth and value. How do you do that? How were you able to do that within your family and within yourself?
Well, I think if you don't take yourself too seriously, and you're more aware of other people in your life, and so, you know, you're not out there alone ever, and so you have a lot of your own personal mentors and family to rely on. We're never really alone. When we feel alone, it's time to get some help. You know, no, I've never ever been left out alone. I've had more help than I could imagine, and I'm deeply grateful for it. And I think that the characters in the film realized that they could look at each other and say, well, he's worse off than I am, or she's worse off than I am. And so you've got to pitch in and do your bit. And I think that, as I say, that's what really creates community. That's what created that team and gave them all a central purpose. And I think that as long as kids feel they have a purpose, but more than that, if they see you leading a purposeful life and contributing, not trying to change the world, but trying to be present in your own world where you are at the time that you are. And I think that has a profound effect that we don't even think about when it's happening. And I don't think they thought about it when it was going on, that they were going to be an inspiration for other people. They did it for each other at the time that it was happening, and it's reflected in community. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for taking the time and for setting that example for us.
Oh, thank you, Kelly.